They say distance makes the heart grow fonder. I say whoever wrote that never had to spend 3 months living out of suitcases and eating soggy hotel breakfast waffles while their wife and son lived life without them. I'm just a regular guy, 38, flannel shirts, black coffee, and a 2-decade-old pickup that still coughs to life like a smoker in winter. My name's Jack Warner. I work for a mid-sized structural engineering firm based out of St. Louis, but my contracts take me all over the country. This one was up in Minnesota, 2 months on site, managing a project that kept falling behind thanks to frozen pipes and union delays. When I left, Rachel, my wife of 9 years, stood on the porch holding our 6-year-old son, Noah. I remember kissing them both like I was going off to war. Rachel tucked a note into my jacket pocket before I climbed into the truck. I waited until the first motel to open it. It said, "Come back soon. I love you. Forever." Now, I'm not a romantic, but I kept that note in my wallet. Right behind my driver's license, where I could see it when the days got long. We talked every night. FaceTime with Noah, phone calls with Rachel. She'd fill me in. Noah lost a tooth, they went to the county fair, she tried a new chili recipe I would have loved. And then she told me that Dad, my own father, had started coming by every few days to spend time with Noah. Said it gave him purpose again. At first, I thought it was nice. Heartwarming, even. My old man, who was never much of a sit-and-play type when I was a kid, was suddenly building a treehouse with my son. Cutting wood, hammering nails, teaching him how to climb like he did when I was Noah's age. Rachel would send me pictures. Noah, sawdust in his hair. Dad, wearing that old faded army jacket and a crooked smile, standing with a hammer in hand like some kind of family man of the year. And Rachel, always behind the camera, always cheerful. Then, near the end of the second month, the calls started to change. Rachel stopped answering on the first ring. Sometimes she said she was tired. Sometimes I'd catch the sound of the TV in the background and a weird kind of silence I couldn't explain. Noah seemed less eager to talk. More distracted. I chalked it up to the excitement of his treehouse project and the boredom of seeing his dad's face on a screen. But something gnawed at me. A pressure right behind the ribs. I was due to fly home the second week of April. But I finished the last punch list early. Signed off on the site. And booked a red-eye home 2 days early. Didn't tell them. Figured I'd surprise them. I imagined walking through the front door, Noah running into my arms, Rachel dropping whatever she was cooking to hug me tight. I thought my dad might even be there, sipping coffee at the kitchen table, grunting his usual, "You made it." That's not what happened. When I got home, it was around 8 a.m. The street was quiet. Birds chirping. That early spring chill still clinging to the morning air. I parked my truck down the street, don't ask me why. Maybe part of me already knew. Maybe I didn't want them to hear me coming. I crept in through the side door, the one that led past the laundry room and into the hallway. The house smelled like home. Fabric softener, coffee, and something else. Something I couldn't place right away. Something wrong. I set my bag down quietly. And then I heard it. A sound I will never forget. The rhythmic creaking of a bed. My bed. Voices. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand clenched on the doorknob to the master bedroom. At first, I told myself I was wrong. That it couldn't be what I thought it was. That maybe the sounds were something innocent. Maybe Noah left the TV on in our room. Maybe it was the creaking of a door, or a busted spring in the mattress. But the voices, the groans and gasps, left no room for innocence. And then I heard his voice. Low, gruff, unmistakably his. My father. There's a special kind of silence that falls over a man when his world ends. It's not loud. It's not violent. It's the silence of a man watching the film strip of his life catch fire and curl at the edges, frame by frame. I turned the knob slowly. No one heard. I pushed the door open no more than an inch. And I saw them. My wife. Rachel. Naked. Twisted in the sheets that used to mean something. Her back arched. Her eyes closed. Her hands gripped the sheets the way she used to grip me. And him. My father. Gray hair. Scar on his shoulder. That damned wedding ring from my mother still on his finger as he held Rachel like a man possessed. They didn't see me. I closed the door. Not all the way. Just enough that I could still hear. Just enough to confirm this wasn't a nightmare. That I wasn't dreaming after too many hours on the road. I walked to the living room and sat down on the edge of the couch. My hands were shaking. Not with rage. Not yet. Just with disbelief. I had loved her. I had trusted him. And while I was building a future for our family, they were back here, tearing it apart one moan at a time. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know how long I sat there. Eventually, the creaking stopped. I heard the low murmurs. Water running. Footsteps. Laughter. They were laughing. Rachel walked out first, in my robe. She turned the corner into the living room and froze. Her face went white. Her smile vanished like it had never been there. "Jack," she whispered. And then he followed behind her, shirtless, old man chest and all, still drying his hands on one of our towels like it was a normal Sunday morning. He stopped dead in his tracks. His eyes met mine. For a long second, no one said a word. I stood up slowly. Rachel opened her mouth. "Jack, I can explain." "Don't," I said, my voice hollow. "Don't insult me like that." My father took a step forward. "Son, it's not what." I cut him off with a look. The same look he gave me when I wrecked my first car. The look that said, "You're done." "Noah," I said coldly. "Where is he?" Rachel swallowed hard. "He's at school." He doesn't know." "Good," I said. I grabbed my keys. Walked back out the side door. They didn't try to stop me. Because what could they say? What words are there when two of the people you trusted most destroyed everything you built? I drove. No destination. Just the road and the ache and the sound of my own breathing, trying to stay steady. By noon, I was sitting at the edge of an empty park, watching a swing sway in the breeze. My phone buzzed again and again. Rachel. My father. Voicemails stacking up. I didn't listen to a single one. I sat there, thinking. Not about forgiveness. About revenge. I'm not a violent man. I've never thrown a punch that wasn't at a wall. But I don't forgive betrayal. Not this kind. Not from your blood. Not from the woman who promised you forever. They thought it was over. But what they didn't know was this: I was already building something too. And when I was done, they'd wish I never came home early. 3 days. That's how long I stayed away. I slept in my truck the first night, parked behind a 24-hour diner off Route 36. No one asked questions. No one cared. That kind of anonymity was a blessing. I watched trucks roll in and out of the parking lot and thought about how easy it would be to just disappear. Drive until the world gave up looking. But I didn't. The second night, I rented a cheap motel room. Not even a room, really, just 4 walls and a bed that smelled like bleach and desperation. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like the thoughts in my head. I didn't drink. Didn't call anyone. Didn't scream or cry. I planned. Because if there's one thing I've learned from years in construction, it's that destruction works best when it looks like precision. If you swing a hammer with rage, you just break things. But if you swing it with purpose, you dismantle. Quietly. Permanently. They thought they had broken me. That their betrayal would make me run, or beg, or snap. But I wasn't broken. I was sharpening. On the morning of the third day, I went home. Not in a rage. I didn't kick the door down or shout their names. I just walked in, like I'd never left. Rachel was in the kitchen, making coffee. She turned and nearly dropped the mug when she saw me. "Jack." "Morning," I said calmly, pulling out a chair at the table. She looked at me like I was a ghost. Are you okay?" I didn't answer. Instead, I looked around the room. The fridge. The mail stacked by the fruit bowl. Noah's crayon drawing still taped to the wall. Normalcy, like they hadn't lit a match to it just days ago. "Where's Noah?" "At school." I nodded. "Good." Silence stretched between us like a wire pulled tight. Rachel took a breath. "Listen, I know you're hurt. I don't know how to." "Don't," I said. "I already told you not to explain. You made your choice. Both of you." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. Not anymore. It wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to happen. "But it did," I said flatly. She nodded, ashamed, still holding the coffee like a shield between us. "I'm not leaving Noah," I said. "So don't get any ideas about custody." Her head jerked up. "I wouldn't, Jack, would never. Wouldn't cheat on me with my father either. But here we are." She winced like I'd slapped her. "Good. I'm staying," I said. "In this house. For Noah's sake. He's not going to grow up wondering where his dad went." Her lip trembled. "But your father, he said you might. Don't speak for him. He's not welcome here anymore." Then I stood up and walked past her, down the hallway, into our bedroom. Their bedroom now, I guess. I threw the sheets out. Ripped the comforter off the bed. Bagged it up like evidence from a crime scene. Because that's what it was. A murder. Of trust. Of family. Of the man I used to be. The next few days were quiet. I moved into the guest room. Ate meals at the table like nothing had happened. Took Noah to school, helped him with homework, asked about the treehouse like I didn't know what happened while it was being built. Rachel tried to talk. Tried to get me to open up. I didn't. Because I wasn't interested in salvaging anything. I was studying them. Waiting. Watching. Dad hadn't come by since I returned. I assumed he'd gotten the message. But that wasn't enough. Because betrayal like theirs doesn't just deserve silence. It deserves ruin. And I was going to give it to them. Not with fists. Not with violence. But with something much colder. Something they'd never see coming. I was going to make them feel what I felt. I was going to make them beg for forgiveness. And I would never give it. My father had always treated feelings like broken tools. If they didn't work, he tossed them aside. Rachel asked about him, carefully, like she was afraid saying his name would set something off in me. "Have you spoken to your dad?" "No." "Do you think, maybe you should?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Would you?" She looked away, biting her lip. "I just want things to go back to normal." I almost laughed. Normal? That word meant nothing now. Our marriage was roadkill, something that once lived, now lying cold on the pavement. You could drag it back into the house, but it would still stink. I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. That would have been too easy for her. Let her feel the weight of every unspoken thing. Let her hear the quiet and wonder what I was thinking. Because here's what I was thinking. Make it slow. Make it last. Make it clean. It started with the treehouse. Noah still wanted to work on it, so I took it over. Every evening after school, we'd walk out to the edge of the yard where the wood and nails still waited. It was good work, honest, manual, something I could control. I built faster than Dad ever did. Stronger, too. I replaced a few of his weaker supports, even the ones Noah had proudly pointed out as Grandpa's design. I said nothing. Just nodded and let the boy believe what he wanted. But every time I hammered a nail through one of Dad's beams, I imagined it driving straight through his pride. Every piece of that treehouse became part of my plan. I wasn't going to hurt him. I'm not that kind of man. But I was going to destroy him in a way he couldn't rebuild from. You see, my father's always been a pillar in the community. Decorated war vet. Retired contractor. Volunteer coach. People love him, or think they do. But I know what's behind that worn leather skin and those polished smiles. I started keeping notes. Times. Dates. Small details. Rachel's phone would buzz when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd answer in the laundry room or out on the back porch. Not often. Just enough to keep whatever rotten thing they had going still smoldering. So I started recording. I installed a listening app on the Wi-Fi router, discreet, quiet, perfectly legal in Missouri if you're part of the conversation. And sometimes I'd accidentally call while she was talking to him. Leave the line open just long enough to hear his voice through the static. She thought she was clever. Whispering. But I heard everything. He doesn't suspect anything anymore. He's quiet, but not dangerous. I think we just have to ride this out, and then maybe, someday, we can have a life. A life? You already had a life. With me. And you set it on fire. On Friday, I invited Dad to dinner. Rachel stared at me like I'd grown horns. Are you serious? Dead serious, I said, scooping mashed potatoes onto Noah's plate. We're family. Family talks things through. He hasn't seen Noah since I got back. She fumbled with her glass. I guess that's fair. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yeah. Fair's real important to me these days. When my father walked through the door at 6:45, the house went still. He looked older than I remembered, like the shame had added a decade to his face. Or maybe it was just the weight of walking into a home where he knew he didn't belong. He held a bottle of wine in one hand and a fake smile in the other. Evening, he said, eyes darting between me and Rachel. Noah came running from the hallway. Grandpa. Dad dropped to one knee and caught him in a tight hug. Hey there, buddy. You been working on our treehouse? Our. The word hit me like a slap. I forced a smile. Noah and I have been putting the finishing touches on it. Dad looked up at me, reading between the lines. Rachel hovered in the doorway, arms crossed like a girl caught between two crashing walls. Let's eat, I said. The dining room felt too small with all of us in it. Like the air had thickened. Like the walls were closing in just a little, inch by inch. I served meatloaf and green beans. A simple meal. Something Dad always liked. I sat at the head of the table. Rachel on my right. Noah beside her. My father across from me. It was quiet at first. The clinking of forks on plates. Noah talking about school. His new teacher. A science project. I nodded along, smiling when I should, making sure my eyes stayed soft, for him. Then Dad tried to speak directly to me. You've been doing good work out back. I saw the braces you added. Nice, clean joins. Thanks, I said, taking a sip of water. Had to reinforce a few things. Wasn't confident in the original cuts. He nodded, clearly taking the hit. Rachel shifted in her seat, eyes flicking between us. I've been thinking, my father said after a moment, that maybe I should take a break from coming around. Let things cool down. Rachel set her fork down gently. Jack invited you. Yeah, I said slowly, I did. Dad looked confused. Because I want things to be clear between us, I continued. No more hiding. No more secrets. He blinked, caught off guard. Rachel stared at me, sensing something beneath my tone. All right, Dad said carefully. Then let me say this, I made a mistake. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to be a part of Noah's life. You should have thought about that, I said, before you crawled into my bed with my wife. Noah stopped chewing. Rachel's face went white. Dad leaned back in his chair. Jack. Hey, buddy, I said to Noah gently, can you go grab the model rocket we were working on? Show Grandpa what we built? He perked up. Yeah. As soon as he was out of earshot, I dropped the smile. You listen to me, I said, voice cold and even. You're not part of this family. You never were, not really. You played the good dad game for a while, and I gave you credit for it. But now I see you for what you are. He said nothing. Just stared at me, lips tight. Rachel reached for my arm. Jack, maybe this isn't the place. I pulled away. You lost the right to tell me what's appropriate. I leaned forward. You want access to Noah? Fine. You get it, on my terms. Supervised. Public places. 1 hour a month. You break that, I'll bury you in court so fast your teeth will rattle. Dad's eyes narrowed. You'd use the legal system against your own father? I smiled. I'd use a nail gun if I thought I could get away with it. The dinner ended in silence. Dad left through the front door without saying goodbye. Noah showed him his rocket, bright red, sleek, full of hope, and my father had nodded and said all the right grandfatherly things. But his smile didn't reach his eyes, and when the door clicked shut behind him, I knew that was it. Rachel and I barely spoke that night. She didn't apologize. She didn't beg. Maybe she knew it wouldn't matter. Maybe part of her was relieved that the tension had broken, even if it had cracked everything else. I stayed up late again. In the den. Lights off. Just me and the hum of the fridge in the next room. That's when I saw it. Noah's tablet, left on the coffee table. He never left it there. That thing was his most prized possession. But there it was, screen glowing faintly in the dark. I picked it up. No passcode. I flipped through a few of his silly games. Cartoons. A picture of the treehouse. Then, buried inside the photo gallery, a video thumbnail that didn't belong. I tapped it. And the air left my lungs. The video was shaky, taken through the crack of a slightly open door. Our bedroom. My bed. Them. My father on top of Rachel, her face twisted in pleasure, hands gripping his back. Noah's voice whispered behind the camera. I think I'm not supposed to see this. The video ended. I sat there frozen. My son had seen it. My son had filmed it. The room spun. He must have stumbled onto them by accident. Kids are curious, always sneaking around. And instead of running away, he tried to understand. Maybe he thought it was a game. Maybe he didn't even grasp what he was seeing. But it was saved. It was evidence. I stared at the screen, then copied the file to a USB drive I kept in my work bag. Backups. Always make backups. Then I deleted it from the tablet, cleared the history, locked it down. Noah didn't need to carry that scar. But I would. The next day, I made a decision. I took the day off work and drove 3 towns over to see someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Gabe Pierce, a guy I knew from back when I was doing side gigs in high school. He used to fix phones, install surveillance systems, crack encrypted files for paranoid divorcees. He owed me a favor. Actually, he owed me 2. His shop was tucked behind a pawn store. Dusty windows. Smelled like solder and secrets. "Jack," he said, surprised. "Thought you moved out of this town's drama." I slid the USB drive across the counter. "I need to know when this was filmed. Time stamp. Location data. Every byte of metadata you can dig up." He looked at the USB, then at me. "Something tells me this ain't a family vacation video." "No," I said. "It's the opposite." He plugged it in and got to work. Gabe was good. 10 minutes later, he had what I needed. "It's from the kid's tablet, all right. Dates, 3 weeks ago. While you were still gone. Middle of the day." He paused. Frowned. "That's weird." "What is?" He turned the screen toward me. This video was uploaded. My blood turned to ice. "Uploaded?" "Yeah. To a cloud backup. Standard kid safety app. You can turn it off, but this one's on. Looks like it auto-syncs all media through a secure link, email, backup drive. You sure nobody else saw this?" I clenched my fists. "Who does it upload to?" Gabe clicked a few more keys. "Email attached to the account, r.evans.private@gmail.com. That was Rachel's email. One she never used around me. Not for groceries. Not for Noah's school updates. Not even for her yoga class subscriptions. But I recognized it from years ago, from the time before we were married. A private inbox. Now I knew it hadn't stayed dormant. It was where she kept things from me. And now it had the video. I didn't say anything when I got home. I tucked the USB back into my work bag, wiped the anxiety off my face, and greeted Noah like nothing had changed. We had leftover chili that night. Rachel made it. Said she thought it was time to start rebuilding. I spooned it into my mouth, smiled, and nodded. But inside, something had cracked wide open. Later that night, after Noah was asleep, I told Rachel I needed to use her laptop. "The school emailed me something about a math fundraiser," I said. "I need to fill it out." "Oh. Sure," she said, slightly wary. "It's in the office." I watched her retreat to the kitchen and heard the fridge open. A bottle hissed, white wine. I slipped into the office, opened her laptop, and waited. She didn't use a password. She never thought she had to. I guess that made 2 of us, once. I pulled up her Gmail. Logged into the private one. My hands shook. Inside the inbox were dozens of emails. Most were deleted, but not all. Some were from my father. Most were cryptic, short, and cold. Like the kind of messages passed between spies and blackmailers. "Keep it quiet. You don't want him knowing what you said. Delete the footage. I warned you. Don't call again unless it's urgent." Then I opened one titled, Insurance. My breath caught. It was the auto-uploaded video, sent from the cloud backup to her private email, forwarded 2 hours later to a burner address I didn't recognize. And beneath it, a reply. "Understood. Hold it. He slips, we bury him." I blinked. They weren't just hiding the affair. They were preparing for something else. A setup. A trap. My heart pounded. I felt sick. That's when I noticed a folder inside the inbox called, Legal Options. Inside were PDFs, consultations with divorce lawyers. Letters drafted. Custody strategies. A plan to take everything. She wasn't trying to rebuild our life. She was waiting for me to snap. Waiting for me to crack open in court, so she could claim emotional distress, or concern for Noah's safety. That's why Dad looked afraid. Why Rachel tried to keep me calm. They knew. They knew what they did. And they were already preparing for war. But I wasn't going to give them war. I was going to give them collapse, from the inside. 2 nights later, I left the house at midnight and drove to my father's. His truck was parked outside. Porch light off. I knew his schedule. I knew the weak spots in his life. And I knew he never locked the garden shed. Inside, under a tarp and 2 old gas cans, was a box of construction files. Blueprints, photos, permits. Things from his contracting days. Some legitimate. Some, not. My dad wasn't always clean. Years ago, he cut corners on permits, especially on the lake house project upstate. Someone fell through a rotted deck there in 2015. Lawsuit settled out of court. A quiet scandal. But I remembered the name, Daniel Yates. And I found the file. Pictures of the shoddy wood. The falsified permit signatures. An old check with Dad's name forged as the inspector. I took pictures of every page. Now I had 2 kinds of leverage. 1, the video. 2, evidence of construction fraud, possibly criminal. I drove home in silence, the stolen files sitting in the passenger seat like coiled snakes. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I pulled into the driveway. The house was quiet. Noah's nightlight glowed faintly through his bedroom window. Rachel's room, once our room, was dark. I parked the car, walked into the garage, and locked the door behind me. I didn't go inside. Not yet. Instead, I spread the photos and copies of the Yates file across the workbench, lit by the single bulb above. Permit fraud. Forgery. Unsafe structures. All tied to my father's signature. It wouldn't be enough to send him to prison, not yet, but it was enough to bury his reputation, wreck his finances, and drag his name through the mud. And now I had a motive, if I ever needed to release that video, a clear pattern of unethical behavior, deception, and disregard for safety. I knew exactly what to do with it. The next morning, I acted like nothing had changed. I made pancakes for Noah. Laughed when he poured syrup on his eggs. I even kissed Rachel on the cheek, just lightly, and said, "You look tired." She blinked, unsure how to take it. "Didn't sleep well." "No reason to," I said. "Not with everything on your mind." She froze for a moment, then smiled too quickly. "I'm glad you're home, Jack." "I am too." She turned back to the dishes, and I watched her like a hawk. At lunch, I sent a text to my father. "We need to talk. 3 p.m., construction yard. Come alone." I picked the site we used to work together, the old gravel pit outside of town. Nobody went there anymore. Just dead machines, broken fences, and a lot of history. He showed up late. Looked like he hadn't slept either. "I don't have time for games," he said, stepping out of his truck. "Good," I said. "Neither do I." I walked him to the tailgate of my own truck and handed him a manila folder. He flipped through it slowly. His face fell. "You kept this?" he muttered. "No. I found it. In your shed." He stared at me, mouth tight. "If I ever hear you've spoken to Rachel alone again, if you even try to meet with her behind my back, this goes to Yates' lawyer. To the state licensing board. To everyone." He nodded slowly, trying to regain control of the conversation. "You think you're clever, son. But you're pushing something you don't understand." "No," I said, stepping closer. I understand exactly what I'm doing. You just never expected me to learn from you. That shut him up. I'll let you see Noah, public places, like I said. But one misstep, one lie, one whisper in his ear about what happened between you and Rachel, and I will burn your entire reputation to the ground. And I'll enjoy it. He stood there, shoulders slumped. The great manipulator finally cornered. You always were quiet, he said. I never saw this side of you. That's because you only looked at me when you needed something. I went home and poured myself a drink. Rachel was out, claimed she was getting groceries. She was gone longer than necessary. I checked the GPS tracker I'd installed under her car's dashboard. She wasn't at the grocery store. She was at a law office. A new one. One she hadn't contacted before, not in any of the emails I'd seen. She was still preparing to leave me. Still setting the stage for something. But now, I had leverage over my father. And soon, I'd have more on her. She thought she was ahead. She didn't know what I was really building. That night, as Noah slept, I slid a small recording device beneath the bed frame in Rachel's room. Hidden. Armed. Ready. Because if she was planning to destroy me in court, I was going to let her build the case with her own words. And then I'd break it, in front of the judge, in front of my son, and in front of the world. She wasn't just cheating anymore. She was plotting. And I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was hunting. The house smelled like lavender when I came home. Rachel had lit candles in the living room, something she used to do when she wanted to pretend things were normal. I watched her for a moment as she wiped the counter, humming quietly. Calm. Too calm. I walked over and placed an envelope on the island. She looked at it, confused. What's this? Your price, I said. She froze. Her fingers curled around the sponge like she wanted to snap it in half. Excuse me? You know what I mean. Her eyes flicked to the envelope but didn't move to open it. $10,000, I said softly. That's what he gave you, isn't it? She didn't respond. I stepped closer. In cash. Neatly bundled. Hidden in the garage, in that blue lockbox behind the water heater. She looked at me now, but her face was tight, too blank to be innocent. I didn't believe it at first, I said. Thought it was just another betrayal. Something emotional. Something toxic. But when I saw the footage, when I traced the cloud backup, when I followed you to the second lawyer, I started looking deeper. I started asking myself the one question I didn't want to believe. I leaned in. How does a man like my father convince his own daughter-in-law to sleep with him? She opened her mouth, but I held up a finger. No lies. Not now. Not after all this. I pulled out the photo I had found, one she didn't know existed. My father and Rachel, sitting in a booth at a roadside diner, months before I came home. He was sliding her an envelope. Her hand was resting on it. She was smiling. It was captured by a waitress who worked there part-time, Gabe's cousin, actually. He had reached out after I mentioned my father's name and said, "Hey, I think I've seen something you might want." Rachel dropped the sponge. It was just once, she whispered. I was scared. I was lonely. You were gone for months. He showed up with pressure. I thought if I said no, he'd make things harder for me, or for Noah. He hinted at lawyers. Custody threats. And when he offered the money. She paused. I didn't want to. But I took it. And then you kept seeing him, I said. More than once. Tears welled in her eyes. I hated myself. I tried to stop it. I wanted to tell you. No, I said. You wanted to use it. You were planning to leave me with my father's money, a lawyer on speed dial, and a custody plan to make me look unstable. She looked away. I didn't know you'd find out. I wasn't supposed to. Later that night, after Noah was asleep, I walked into the garage and opened a small safe I'd hidden under the floorboards. Inside were duplicates of everything: the video, the emails, the forged permits, the bank receipts from my father's withdrawals, the photo from the diner. I sealed them in a package addressed to my lawyer with a note. Hold if anything happens to me. Just in case. Then I opened my laptop, filed a quiet report to the state licensing board regarding my father's fraud, using an anonymous portal Gabe helped me spoof. 2 weeks later, he was being investigated. His accounts were frozen. Rachel? She left. She thought she'd beat me to it, thought I'd crumble after she was gone. But I'd already emptied our joint account. Left her just enough to take a bus out of town. I got full custody of Noah. She didn't even fight it. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe out of fear. Now, it's just me and my boy. We go for walks. We build forts. I teach him how to hammer nails without hitting his fingers. One night, he asked me, "Why did Grandpa stop coming around?" I ruffled his hair and said, "Sometimes people do bad things and forget who they are. That's why it's important we don't." He nodded like he understood, then ran off to find his rocket. I watched him from the porch as the sun set behind the trees. The war was over. The silence afterward was peace. But I never forgot what they did. And neither did they.